Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hello, everybody. This is Cody Wood with the USTPA, and you're watching The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
What the hell is the USTPA, man? You got to fill me in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me in the first place. But the USTPA, it stands for the United States Team Pinning Association. And so for anybody not familiar with team pinning, ranch sorting, the USTPA is the pinnacle of our sport. And, I'm happy to be here and representing the USTPA, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat about it a little bit.
Yeah. So if everybody who doesn't know, Cody Wood was on the show, just before the pandemic started. And he had started a company where you too could be a rodeo star and ride a bull or whatever. And then different levels of bull. And then, of course, the pandemic started. And it's like anybody who thought they had a business revolving around people getting together and doing stuff and having a great time, forget that. Wear your pajama pants and go home. So we've had Cody on before, and it's cool to have him on. And anything that happens with rodeo just seems to fascinate us as Americans. I don't know how international the sport is, though. Can you give us kind of a survey of like, look, I know Canada, and I'm counting Canada as kind of the greater, North American thing. We like these kinds of sports, but does this stuff translate to Germany?
Yeah, so it's funny, and it's awesome that you asked that question because so when you're looking at all of Western sports as a whole, and you're right, when we chatted last, I grew up in a bull riding family, have a bull riding background, and the organization and business that I was working with there did take a blow with COVID and live events or whatnot. But as a whole, when you're looking at it, Canada's obviously a big player. Mexico, Brazil, Australia has a huge presence with inside rodeo, bull riding, Western sports. And then with the United States Team Pinning Association as a whole, one of our regions happens to be Italy, and another one of our regions happens to be Venezuela. And Italy specifically has a really strong contingency. And for anybody in Italy right now that's tuning in and watching us live, hello to you guys. It's going to be awesome to hopefully have you all back here for our World Finals this year because we've missed our Italy contingency the last couple of years. But yeah, to answer your question, Italy is a stronghold for us in team pinning, and love to work our way into like Germany as that example. But right now the Italians are holding down over in Europe.
It's remarkable that these things really are. I mean, look, I'll just say cowboying in general, ranching in general is a thing throughout the world because people got to eat and you have to manage cows, and animal husbandry has been around as long as there's basically been humans. When you look at a weekend at a rodeo, do you guys fit into this? Like, is it like bull riding, bronc busting, barrel racing, and team pen? Are you guys all there together traveling along?
Yeah. So another fantastic question, because that's exactly kind of where, we're kind of playing in a sense is right now we are not. No. So rodeo in itself has essentially 8 traditional events with inside rodeo. We are a Western sport with inside, our demographic Western sports industry. We are our own Western sport when it comes to team pinning and ranch sorting. So we're not technically a part of rodeo, but boy, we have had a lot of success here recently. And as as I mentioned, my background being bull riding, utilizing bull riding because people obviously are familiar with bull riding. Bull riding draws a large ticket sale. And so like, for example, at our World Finals in Amarillo this last year, we incorporated bull riding into our team pinning to help draw people into the arena and see team pinning for themselves. Team pinning as a whole is very fast. It's extremely competitive. When you're on a timed event or a timed sport in any regard, it's going to have that element of excitement. And so, we bring that, and utilizing bull riding really is a nice transition specifically, and have chatted with a lot of large rodeos, been a part of other large rodeos over the course of time, but not traditionally a part of the rodeo event schedule, if you will.
Yeah. And I appreciate you kind of giving me a breakdown on this because I am familiar that we have things called rodeos, and I can probably think of 6 of the events that happen at them, if there are 8.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just don't have, and I think the audience in general, like this is what we're trying to do, is try to inspire people to go. So when you go to a USTPA event, how many outsiders are there? I mean, is it just a bunch of cowboys on a rail looking over a fence, watching with stop clocks, or are you guys in stadiums? And then, yeah, like if you're a mom, like I'm looking for something fun to do, what does it look like for a family to come out to a USTPA event?
Yeah. So like I said, I've had the opportunity to work with the USTPA and get to learn and love team pinning as a whole. And now in my new role as the executive director, obviously I'm right at the forefront of driving all that. But essentially, we're in massive arenas. Just to give you an example, we have a large event coming up in Fort Worth, Texas in May. As far as speaking to some of those, and that's going to be at the Will Rogers Coliseum, and they're in Fort Worth. But that event, for example, will have $75,000 added in cash, and then a payout of around $350,000 in cash and prizes total. So a lot of these folks that you'll see at an event are, business owners and, have day jobs throughout the week. But then just love the opportunity to go out and compete. A lot of them are actually past athletes that are, kind of filling a void in a sense, but doing it in a great way with team pinning and ranch sorting. But then the family aspect, there might not be a better aspect in everything that we do as an organization and as a sport than the family piece. You'll have kids as young as, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. That have kind of, really learned their horsemanship skills, have the ability to go out and compete with mom and dad, and mom and dad will be on the same team. And when you watch a family, because there's teams of 3, in the team pinning, there's 3 folks on a team, win an event, get a buckle and a check, with your young daughter or son. That is just such a unique experience that other sports, is unfortunately not for anything wrong on their side, but they just can't provide that like we can. And that's something that we really hang our hat on and try to utilize and capitalize off of moving forward to try to bring those folks, with inside our sport.
I suppose we should describe pretty clearly what penning looks like and what it is, because even when we first talked on the phone, you said penning, and I'm like, are you saying pinning like like a blue ribbon?
Yep.
So describe for us who's doing what they're doing, and what are they doing it to?
Yeah, so I'll kind of set the scene for you and the audience, and so team pinning has been around for quite a while, but like I said, it's not a traditional rodeo event, but it's a Western sport. And so if you'd envision, 30 cows being on one end of an arena, and those cows all have a number to them. And so, for example, 0 through 9. And each number, there's 3 of them. So there's 3 1s in the herd. There's 3 2s in the herd. And then at the other end of the arena, you've got 3 riders on horseback coming in. And they don't know what number they're going to get. So an announcer, once they cross a line, will say, cattle number 6. And that tells them that they have to go into that herd of 30 and pull out the 3 specifically that have the number 6. And then once they do pull them out, they have to take them back to the other end of the arena where they entered from. And there's a pin there that they then have to get all 3 of them into that pin, and fastest time wins, And so when you're talking about extremely fast times, we're talking 20, 25 seconds, sometimes sub 20 seconds. So you're looking at some people with some serious horsemanship and the ability to, read the cattle and go down there, pluck them out of the herd in the first place, bring them back and pin them with inside that 20, 30 second, obviously sometimes it takes longer, but that's what you're looking at. A lot of fast excitement.
And are there multiple teams on the ground at the same time? So you have like 6 teams. Okay. So
yeah. Wow. So you have the one team that obviously competing at initially. But to give you an example, it's one of the biggest shows of our year, probably going to turn out to be the largest event in team pinning history. But this large event that I referred to earlier, that'll be in Fort Worth in May, we're hoping to have 1,100 teams there. So there will be 1,100 different teams of 3 that will be competing for that $350,000 in cash and prizes. And, so really, great opportunity for a team to jump out and win over $40,000 for first place and paying money all the way down to the top 20.
That blows me away. That's a lot of people. I mean, where do you put all these people? You got to have that's got to be like a state fairground where you put, because you need multiple arenas, because you couldn't work through that in a weekend, right? Like you need to have 5 different courts, or what do you call it?
An arena. Yep. In an arena. And so you're right. We would have, it does. It goes from morning till night. And then obviously we highlight our championship round, when you're down to that top 20. Yeah. So we'll be in the Will Rogers Coliseum, which is a historical, beautiful arena there in Fort Worth. It's where the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo was for many, many years,
right?
Decades. And so we'll be right in there. But you got folks coming from Ontario, from Los Angeles, to Florida, all the way across the country will come and compete that weekend. And a lot of these folks, like I said, will be business owners or folks that have day jobs, and then to give them the opportunity to come and win big money in a competitive atmosphere and a fun environment too. We have a lot of times, like I said, we are incorporating bull riding into that event specifically. We have concerts going on and really try to make it a very entertaining atmosphere.
I'm looking at the site USTPA.com, and on the schedule, Arizona, Phoenix, of course, that makes sense. Yeah. There's kind of a Western vibe there. But the city of Winslow, Illinois, city of Norwich, New York. I mean, this is all over the place. Virginia, Benton, Arkansas, Sioux City, South Dakota. You guys get around. Las Vegas, of course.
Yeah, we have almost an event every single weekend. Big shout out to everybody right now in Forest, Mississippi. Actually, the event there with Dustin and Leanne Johnson gets started this weekend, but so Forest, Mississippi this weekend. Next weekend we're going to be going down to Tampa, Florida. So right outside the city limits, right there in Tampa. Really looking forward to that. It's going to be a beautiful weekend there with those folks. But then like I said, then on to Queen Creek, Arizona, right outside of Phoenix, then on to Las Vegas, Columbiana, Ohio. So yeah, really we're all over the place, and a great opportunity, like I said, for any of your listeners out there that might have ever been interested in horses or, competing, in something outside of maybe what you grew up doing. Maybe you're a football player or played soccer or whatever the case may be. We're here to give you an opportunity to learn and compete for some of this big money.
What does it cost to go to a USTPA weekend event?
Yeah, so it varies, obviously. So what's nice about it is you have different handicaps, just like golf, right? So say a couple folks that just wanted to learn or get started, they're starting and competing with other folks that are just learning as well. So having that handicap really, really helps in that regard. So you have the ability to compete in a smaller class, a medium-sized class, and then you will have some really high-level horsemen and women that are, at that highest level. But yeah, so very broad base. But you might spend, a couple $100 a weekend in entry fees, depending on how many times you want to enter those. So you can enter 20 times, and obviously, the bill will go up in a sense. But like I said, the access to the sport itself, you obviously need to have a horse, but there's places to do that. Actually, one of our very best training facilities, if you will, coaches, places to get started in the entire world happens to be there in Southern California, just south of Los Angeles, north of San Diego. They're a beautiful facility. The James and Remy Greer are their names, and they've done a fantastic job of reaching out to, let's say a different demographic that might not have that Western horsemanship background, and in creating new riders. And then they have the ability also to, board your horse there and practice almost every night. I mean, they're competing and practicing all the time, and have created some serious champions inside our sport. And so they just happen to be in your neck of the woods.
No kidding. Yeah, that's really fun. What if you are interested in just checking it out? You're like me, I can't ride a horse anymore. Hip, right? So I just want to come check it out. What does that cost me to come do?
So most of the time it's free, actually. Because these events, like I said, because there are so many, there's so many riders, so many teams. We'll start at 8 a.m. and it might not get over till 8 p.m. So most of the time it is free. We do have ticketed events when we incorporate bull riding and some of our concerts, in some of those things, or some of our special events, there might be some aspect there. But yeah, for the most part, we make it free because, this is going to be one of the biggest sports in all of Western sports, if it isn't already. But we are in a trajectory right now of growth that, will not slow down. The Yellowstone effect, if you will, has played a role, which is awesome. I mean, obviously the show Yellowstone has got some Hollywood drama in it, but there's also a lot of reality in it as well. From a ranching, cowboy, Western sports perspective, they highlight a lot of reining and cutting in the show. But team pinning has got some strong similarities when it comes to cutting specifically. And we also happen to be a much easier conduit to get inside of Western sports than maybe any other Western sport as well. So, so anytime we can offer the opportunity for people to see our event, see what we do, might as well make it free and have as many as possible in the arena.
Yeah. Can you buy a beer and a hot dog when you're there too?
Oh yeah. Yep. You absolutely can, and so that's what works out, kind of the business model. Like I said, the bull riding piece does add some other challenges where you need to have a ticket sale, but right now, most everything we do is free, and it's a fun atmosphere. Like I said, the ability to compete with your kids, to compete with your spouse, and some of these horses are unbelievable. The equestrian athletes that we deal with on a daily basis, they're going to be, I don't want to say on the smaller side, but they are going to be a little bit more athletically built, if you will, where they're got a lot more agility from, movement wise, side to side. So they're not going to be like your Clydesdales or your big, strong horses. They're going to be pulling things. These are horses that are really catty and do extremely good job keeping up with the cattle and moving through the herd. And so that's a whole other aspect that I absolutely just love in general. I think any cowboy or anybody in Western lifestyle or Western sports, when it comes to animals and their role with inside what we do, how we care for them on a daily basis, what our overall just lifestyle is based around caring for animals. So they're a huge part of what we do and add an extremely valuable aspect to the overall viewership and in a daily event.
Yeah. And this is one of the big things, like when we look at these culturally important things to preserve the Western cultural way of life, the ranching way of life, and make it palatable. You guys have to be good stewards of the animals and the industry around it. Like you can't just feed horses nonsense. You've got to actually take care of, what you feed them, and then what comes out of them, and all of these things. It's my buddy Scott. He's got horses, and if you go to his house, he's like, "Hey, help me go do whatever," and it involves poop and food and water, and a gate that needs whatever. There's always something to do when you care for animals. How do these horses hold up? I mean, they are athletes. You're right, and they're making turns and cuts, and they've got anterior cruciate ligaments. They've got bursitis. How do these animals hold up over time with this event? And they must love it too, by the way.
Yeah, they do, and so a lot of them, like I said, will be compete throughout the day. They're extremely athletic and trained to be athletic ahead of time. So whether that's with their daily routine of being in an arena and working cattle, or even just like you said, down to the supplements, a lot of these supplements that they're taking are not only good for their ligaments and their joints and just their overall strength and health, but boy, there's some that we work with right now in Elite Equine, for example, that is also for their brain cognitivity, for their weight and everything else, and so they are definitely cared for in a big way. I mean, that's horses in themselves, just like cars and everything else, unfortunately have gone up in price. And so you are paying a good amount of money. And so you want to care for them at the highest level possible. And then, some of these events, like you said, depending on how many times you're riding, a lot of these trainers and stuff might have multiple horses that they're working with. Some folks might have two, and obviously some folks just have the one, and you need to make sure to be cognizant of, where they're at on a daily basis. And so you will see a lot of folks, maybe one kind of slipped a little bit or whatnot, and you're just a little bit worried that they're not as, stable or whatnot as they need to be. And then they'll turn out and save the horse. So that's absolutely a huge part of what we do.
I love it. It's neat to hear. And it just, what's blowing me away is someone that has got really no sense of Western sports. I know they exist, and there must be over 1 million people that do all of these things, between rodeo and roping and cut, all these things. There must be a zillion people working on this, driving their horse somewhere to go compete or, do their business. And then that means that there's people breeding and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
What does a professional caliber horse cost thereabouts? I mean, it's not $25 like the old days in the West, right? So
yeah. So obviously that can fluctuate quite a bit, just like any athlete, but there are some that will, go over 50, start to close in on $100,000, so, like I said, you spend $50,000 on a horse, you're going to make sure that they are cared for at the highest level. And it goes up from there. Obviously when you start talking about race horses specifically, now that's a whole other number. But you still have the ability to go out there and compete. And that's what's nice too, is a lot of the folks that we work with that do this for a living, they train and they work with these horses, on a daily basis. And then they ride with you, coach you, and then give you the opportunity to have the easiest access possible to getting on a horse or getting your own horse and working with inside a budget and not just a budget, but one, you're riding a level and ability, and then also having the ability to know what are your strengths and weaknesses as a rider so that they're comparing you and are with the best horse possible that's going to fit, your riding style. And so it's really interesting just how intrinsic, it gets to matching horse and rider.
Yeah, I know in horse racing, geldings, female horses, they're not as successful and sought after, I suppose. This is just Pete talking. Maybe I'm wrong about this. It's usually males that are young, the Kentucky Derby, and you age out pretty fast for that kind of racing. Is it a similar thing here where females are not as successful as male horses? And then are there geldings in this thing?
Yeah. You'll have a little mix of everything, but not like it is so much there. You'll have a wide mix, like for example, we have a performance horse of the year. We have a performance horse of the month, if you will, so we can highlight, who's the best equestrian athlete of the month. And this last month, it was a mare that, does a fantastic job as an extreme athlete, and is owned by a young 8-year-old girl. And she happens to be, one of the best riders in the world, especially from a youth perspective, obviously. But yeah, her and her horse, her horse's name is Lexus. So shout out to Lexus, the performance horse of the USTPA for the month of January. But they do a great job, and she happens to be a mare.
So you guys have events basically every weekend. Sometimes there's 2 events in a week.
Yep.
How many people from the USTA are going to officiate and facilitate? I mean, that's got to be a whole tribe of lunatics as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you remember, I happen to be an announcer. I announce bull riding, rodeo, and I announce the team pinning. That's how I got started with them, actually. And so there's a lot of moving pieces at these events, and especially because we also want to protect the cattle and make sure that the cattle are fresh and cared for and that they're healthy as well. And so, for example, I keep referencing this one event coming up, the Elite Finals in May, but we'll have over 800 head of cattle there, to make sure that they're being facilitated and because they're running and they're, exerting, themselves as well. And so to make sure that they stay fresh, and that one aspect alone takes, an army, if you will, to make sure that the cattle are healthy, to make sure that, they're circulating with inside the event properly. So yeah, they're between the cattle crew, we call them, the judges, the announcers, the gate crew, the folks in the office. There's a lot of moving pieces, just like any other big, massive business or organization.
And it really is massive. And that stuff is just, it's not free to take someone's weekend or, hey, on Wednesday this week, we're headed to Fort Worth. That means you got to leave on Monday, or maybe even Sunday to get out there. Probably got to drive for a lot of people because you got stuff to bring.
Yeah.
That's millions of dollars every year. It's got to have that.
It is. And we actually have one of the things that I'm super proud of our organization is we've got a great live feed. So we have a serious amount of resources when it comes to our production team and all that. The cameras, a lot of times we'll have 8 different camera angles and whatnot that we're working with and producing our live feed. So like, for example, they're in Forest, Mississippi right now. And I would be in Mississippi myself right now, but my daughter turns 8 years old today and needed to prioritize that for the birthday party tomorrow. But for example, like that's a whole other aspect that, like I said, going down the road, it's a big trailer wrapped in USTPA, logos and signage and stuff. And so it's really something though that we try to utilize and allows us to reach out to folks in England or Italy. It's awesome to see, when you're on a live feed and somebody comment like, hello from Australia, so but that's a whole other piece that's going down the road that takes a lot of time and a lot of money to make sure that you're, prepared.
We were talking the other day about doing a pro-am poker tournament for the charity that I work with, Save the Brave. I mean, we're way away. We may not even do it, but we're just talking about what it takes. And you start bringing in the experts for the different parts. And in this case, I would be the broadcasting expert. And I'm like, well, we're going to need about 20 cameras. And they're like, 20 cameras, because that all costs money. But this is poker. This is places people sitting still around a table, and it still takes a lot of cameras. Like it's not just this thing, you think that it is. So first off, I want to ask, where can people watch when you guys live stream? I think that's the best gateway to get into like, hey, let's check this out. And then are you on cable or where else are you guys?
Yeah. So right now we have it's our live feed through Facebook, through YouTube, through Vimeo. That Facebook is the easiest and the best probably. So if you do have an opportunity, I'd really appreciate you guys to follow the United States Team Pinning Association. And so like tomorrow morning, 8:00, I believe it'd be 8:00 Central Time, our live feed will start and it will run all day, Saturday, all day, Sunday, and give you a great opportunity to meet some of the folks. And we've got interviews and things that go on throughout that live feed. But we're also, working with, trying to get in touch and get an opportunity with like the Cowboy Channel. The Cowboy Channel is kind of, definitely the leader with inside our Western sports world. And they have really done some amazing things when it comes to rodeo and getting rodeo more, advertised and broadcasted to more people. And, like I said, so team pinning as a whole, we're still a work in progress and hope to have some access and partnerships with them here soon. But if you haven't, checked out the Cowboy Channel lately, I definitely would recommend that too, just because like we've talked before, you and I, the first time, one of the biggest things about Western sports, rodeo, bull riding, team pinning, is some very misconceptions, of one, how the animals are treated, what the process looks like. And so the ability for them to see it firsthand is crucial and to kind of learn from themselves and not take some meme off of social media or whatever the case may be. And that's where, I mentioned again is the Yellowstone show, where they, have a lot of Hollywood drama, but have really done a great service in showing certain aspects that are real and the hard work that has to be put into caring for a horse or working a ranch or, competing in a rodeo, and the dangers that are involved with it every day, and I think, no matter what, danger or that thrill is also very enticing to folks in, questioning, can I do that? Would I be capable of riding that bucking horse or, getting up at 5 a.m. every morning and working that hard for that long of period. And so, yeah, I do appreciate that about it.
Definitely go check out on Facebook, the USTPA Facebook page. If you type in USTPA, it's going to come up. If not, just type in US Team Penning Association, and then you'll go right to it. You'll see it.
Yeah, thank you. We get a lot of the tennis, the U.S. Tennis Association, correlation, which is all right. That's a good organization. To have people kind of fall from there or get mixed up. But
Just
Don't
team,
forget the P.
team thing. Yeah, exactly, right. Or the United States Tennis Players Association, the union or whatever they have.
Yeah. Yep.
It is really remarkable because we are in a time where you can build your own network, your own presence for, we'll just call them alternate sports. I mean, we just saw the Olympics, aka the X Games. I mean,
Yeah.
The X Games were so impactful on the Olympic brand that a third of the sports are X Game centric type sports, and totally different than the traditional things. You see Formula One just exploding all over the place. Obviously, rodeo is big enough that it fills giant arenas, and that's just one circuit. There's multiple circuits. There's rodeo going all over the place. You guys are out there. Tennis is out there. I think there's even a professional pickleball league.
Yeah.
Pickleball, so.
Yeah. Or the growth of the other one, that's the Cornhole Association.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, the amount of money and activity that's in cornhole right now is just staggering.
Yeah. And I guess you got to mention curling, because every time the Winter Olympics happen, we're all just enamored with curling. Mr. T tweets live about curling. That's how much he loves it,
Yep.
Who are some of the notable people? Actually, let me say this. If you guys want to support the Break It Down Show, go to breakitdownshow.com. There's a PayPal link in the upper left-hand corner. That's how you can support me directly. I don't need Patreon. I need you and me. We'll work everything else out. You want me to do something for you? Come by your house, whatever. I don't care what it is. But that's how you support the show. That's how you help me fund travel, fund new equipment. I just bought a new camera. Thanks part to the folks that already support the show. Whatever it is, a tank of gas. These things go a long way to allow me to stay nimble, stay small, go out and get things done. And so that's my big ask from you guys, is just go to that, or just watch on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching somewhere else, you're listening on the podcast side, watch on YouTube, because that's where I get the most direct access to funding. And that helps out. It's not much. So those extra dollars help out, but $5 a month in subscription I couldn't tell you how big that would be for me. All right. So that's me.
Thank you though for what you do. Love what you guys do.
For sure, man. Thank you. We try to do hard. We try to spread the love around. And I should say, this is not paid advertisement with you guys. I just genuinely love to expose people to these new things. And I know that America has a very strong Western culture, and here you guys are living it and doing it. Who are some of the celebrities? Like, do you guys have a Mr. T who loves what you guys do and tweets and gets involved in ambassador rates, or who gets involved that we might know of?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a broad perspective or whatnot, like I said, when you look at it, I would think maybe from a team pinning perspective, you kind of have to look at as a whole, from a Western sports perspective, and there are definitely some celebrities and different things that have really kind of, been around, kind of played a role, especially when it comes to, the animals, and owning certain horses, or even, bucking bulls. For example, there's a lot that could be, played within there. Like a big one that comes to mind, football player Jared Allen, played for the Chiefs and for the Vikings, has a great bucking bull, business and whatnot. But you'll have, some of these larger events, the NFR there in Vegas, the PBR World Finals. You'll start to get some of those folks that will, kind of be there and enjoy it live. And there's actually, there in Los Angeles, we have a large PBR event, which has had Tom Cruise on the back of the bucking chutes in the past. UFC fighters are constantly at our, Western sports events, because obviously there's a lot of correlation between those two. So that's kind of, it's nice to see. And you're starting to see it, like I said, more and more with certain popularity and aspects in the world today.
I want to talk about the cattle, because like you said, you guys are caring for the animals. And we were just the other day, I was talking with someone about bullfighting and how I've struggled with bullfighting. I've seen live bullfighting, but just barely. And I was like, I didn't want to see it anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they don't take care of bulls in this thing, but it's just, for me, it's from a different time. But we're in this time, and I know you guys take care of the cattle. So what are these cattle, quote unquote, athletes as well? Are they going to become dinner at some point? What is the story of the cow?
Well, so first thing too, just because I'm with you. One of the things that's always been a challenge, and this is going to my bull riding life, is Mexican and Spanish bullfighting. Is not at all what we do here in the United States, obviously.
Right.
So
right.
one one of the fastest growing aspects of Western sports happens to be American style bullfighting and the athleticism and everything that goes with inside that as well. And then even, there's from a bull riding perspective, some of the folks, in other countries definitely do some stuff that we don't agree with here. And so, I hate it when you get tied into that. Right. But it's just part of it. And so wanted to take an opportunity to let folks know that there is a massive difference between our bull riding and other countries' bull riding and our bullfighting versus other countries' bullfighting. But as far as the USTPA and the cattle, a lot of them are younger heifers, so heifer being, a cow that hasn't had a calf yet. They're not necessarily, I would say, athletes. Like I said, you're looking at, 800 of them being brought in. They're usually typically at a certain age, at a certain size. So they're young, youthful, energetic, if you will. But they will probably grow to be, mama cow, and be, out on a pasture and having calves and creating more, more livestock. But for when they're with us and when we're working with them, we might at that 800, they might work for an hour and then be done for the day. So that type of thing.
And how is it on their system to be chased and penned? I mean, that must be a shock and release, cortisol and adrenaline. I mean, how do you guys manage that stress aspect of what they go through? Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And so that's really mainly about the time frame, and so that cattle crew, like they've got it down pretty much to a science in the sense of how often it needs to be changed out, or, there's a schedule in place, if you will, that they're moved. But yeah, it's really, not too bad because you're also looking at a herd of 30. So a lot of their movement is not like they're really full on sprinting or running necessarily, except for when they're the one going to the pen, so it's not too bad in that regard. But just as long as you stay up with one, having the number of cattle, like that's the key, is having enough, like if somebody was to put on an event and they only had 30 cows, then that's inhumane and something that we wouldn't, partake in. But like I said, we'll at that 1% event, and specifically, we'll have 800 and they'll be moved in and out over a 4-day period and cared for that way.
Do you think does every cow end up getting a number painted on it where they get penned, or is it even then just a fraction of the cows?
Yeah. So out of, 3 out of the 30, so 10% of the time they'll get pinned essentially. Right. And we actually just use it's almost like a sticker, that goes on their side. So it's not necessarily painted on them. It's a sticker, it's an adhesive there. But yeah, they'll go about 10% of the time, right? So there's 3 out of the 30, and we usually will have. So what happens is we usually will have roughly anywhere from 8 to 10 teams go, and then we change the cattle. So it's not like they're not even in the arena for a 20-minute period. They may be in there for 15 minutes and then they're changed. And like I said, so it's all a rotation.
And are these cattle tracked? Are they like numbers? Are they names? And then how do you select which cows get the marker on them that are set to be penned for that round? Yeah,
so they'll sort them out in groups of 30, and so each 30 will have those set numbers, and then they all stay inside their group and are kind of shuffled in a rotation. And so, but as far as their branding or their ear tags and stuff from an overall business perspective, they usually will have an ear tag that will kind of mark their number, and because obviously, that's obviously a whole other business within itself that's massive. But to be organized and keep track of that, they'll have a little ear tag that's like an earring.
Yeah. So I guess I'm trying to sort out is like, is there a cow where you're like, oh, that's Squirrely Jane. She hates to go in the pen.
Yeah.
Then, oh boy, you got Squirrely Jane's got like you're the announcer, this stuff. Like,
So I know exactly where you're going. Where you're going now. So like you're absolutely right. There are, just like humans, just like dogs, every animal's got their own personality. And every now and then there will be old Squirrely Jane or whatnot in the herd, and you've got to kind of sort them out, honestly, because what happens is that part of the team pinning process is there's an imaginary line, if you will. Obviously there's markers on the fence posts or on the fence that tell you where this line is. And if a cow that's of a wrong number, so say your number is 6 and a number 3 cow crosses that line, then it's a no time. The judges blow the whistle and you get a no time and you're done. And so
what does that mean? A no time? Like
so essentially you lost, or you have no chance of moving forward within the competition. And that
let me see if I understand what you're saying. So if your number is 6, you got 3 cows that are number 6, and Squirrely Jane is number 3, and she runs into the pen automatically because she's scared, you are no-go that round. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yep. So then you have a no time. So when you have that Squirrely Jane, the judges will actually address it and, let essentially that you have a rerun because you didn't get a fair shot. And the cattle crew will then take Squirrely Jane out of the herd, and she'll be set aside, and we won't utilize her just because, like I said, everybody, just like bull riding and everything else, or any sport, you want to have a fair shot. And sometimes when you get those wild ones like that, it's gotta address it.
It's like when every now and then, it used to be all the time on George Michael, they would show the rodeo highlights, and there'd be that one bull that'd be like, open the chute, and he'd just stand there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't move it on. You're like, it's hilarious. What happens if you get a cow that's just like, no, I'm not moving today? I mean,
you have that too, where like, because one of the really interesting aspects of it, and if you've ever played football, for sure football, and you're doing like angle or pursue, right? You've got to, kind of address that cow, and then the other aspect of it is a cow, if you're not close enough to it, won't move. But then sometimes if you're too close, like say that horse's breast collar or whatnot is up against the cow, that'll make the cow stop. So that rider needs to kind of find that sweet spot of being close enough to it, to where it's still moving and not far enough away to where it's still moving. But yeah, you'll have that though too, where you get too close and that cow will just put the brakes on and not want to go forward. And then that's up to the rider though to be able to manage that piece of it and handle that cow correctly.
And the cow part of it, when you guys go to whatever, Snot Rag, New York, not to make fun of New York. You go to some other place in New York because it's ranch country. Are the local ranchers then hiring their cows out for the day that are within the USTPA, like these kind of cows bracket, and they bring them in, and you guys just kind of use those local cows, or are there traveling cows? I don't know.
No, it's just like you said. I mean, a lot of times we're working with local ranchers that happen to have a good amount of cattle, and so each different region might have one or two particular people that they work with, because obviously, 800 cows, not everybody has, that many. So yeah, there are individuals we work with, but yeah, they're all over the country as well.
Yeah, that's it. That's real fascinating.
Yeah.
The job of announcing this kind of stuff, how do you approach it? Because, you think about baseball and football, it's fairly even toned. Yes, there's some exciting moments, but this is 30 seconds of hilarity, of excitement, of all these things. Are you more like an amplitude kind of? How would you describe your ability to describe this so that we can kind of get a feel for what it is?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a great question in the sense from an announcer perspective. So like, for example, if you're announcing a bull riding or a rodeo, a lot of that is it's all commentary. You don't really have any aspect in how that bull rider's ride will turn out, or what that competition, how you don't play a role in it whatsoever other than commentating it. Now with the team pinning, because of the fact that you are giving them their cattle number, that you have to be extremely sharp and know what cattle number you've called each and every time to ensure that you're not duplicating that number. Because again, going back to the cattle safety, you don't want to have a 5 and then overexert that 5 cow. So the number's always got to be different. And so you play a role in that aspect and making sure that you're communicating clearly enough to these riders, one, what their cattle number is, and then you also need to make sure, because there's so many teams, who's on deck, who's in the hole, where are we at with inside the event itself. So that's another piece of the puzzle that you're having to announce with inside that 30 seconds. And then from my perspective, you also want to bring some excitement to the competition in itself, and not necessarily so much only for the people that are in the arena, but you got to be cognizant of the folks that are watching live. If you're sitting down to watch a couple hours of team pinning and you're in England, for example, because shout out to them if they're watching. I want to make sure that they're entertained and that they're understanding what's going on as well. So if one of your audience members watches, this next weekend or one of the weekends coming up, that announcer should also be explaining to you, one, where that team is at, what that team is doing. If they do something exceptional, that needs to be recognized and educated to the audience why it was exceptional. And so trying to take all that in is a lot. And so it has been a huge benefit to me, because I'm the executive director here for the USTPA now, but I'm also an announcer. I still am doing, bull riding and rodeo. And when you spend that much time at a team pinning with all these different variables going on, and then you go to a bull riding or a rodeo, it's almost like everything slows down. And the two have been so imperative for me as an announcer because, the commentating side from the bull riding world, I've been able to bring to team pinning, and the logistical difficulties from the team pinning side of things I've brought to the bull riding side of things. And so can really, slow the entire process down, which is invaluable in anything.
You were doing a lot when I'm assuming you're not picking the number specifically. Someone talks to you and says, just time the cows or cows number 3. So that, I'm assuming, but you're also managing, like you said, an international audience. How interactive, like right here, like if I wanted to, we could put a comment up on the screen, right? Like boom, right there. There's Ian Mather saying, are you cognizant of that? How interactive can you be, and how much work do you have to do besides calling? And then how much action in an hour, where you're like, okay, like bull riding, it's 8 seconds, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens, and I don't know, maybe that takes 5 minutes, and then the next bull's ready, and it goes. It's just only so much action, right, in an hour. So you've got to fill that with commentary, analysis, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And what's nice about the team pinning piece is it's really boom, boom, boom. I mean, things are moving. And then you also, for the horse's safety, you also want to make sure, and the cattle safety, that the ground is good. So you will have those lulls where we have to drag the arena and shift the dirt or whatnot to make sure that their footing is safe and comfortable. But going through that process and education more than anything, and all announcers are this way, so it's not just me, but I do take pride in the fact that really try to walk somebody through the process that maybe is there for their first time, and maybe the entire arena of thousands of people have seen a bull riding before, but that one person that's never seen a bull riding, they need to understand what's going on and why we do certain things. And so for some of those gaps that might be in there, it could be a great opportunity to speak directly to that person in a sense, and kind of educate, but in an entertaining and informal way of having just a conversation with somebody on a microphone.
You must get crushed after, I don't know, how long do you run one of these things? 3 hours, 5 hours? You must just be devastated. So that's these team pinnings. Like there's so many people and so many teams, we'll go from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Oh my God.
Yeah. And so you're talking, multiple days in a row of nonstop action. And if you're an announcer or part of the crew, I mean, you do work your tail off. But there's a lot of supporting roles as well. So, because, like you're referring, how do you know what the cattle number is, or, how do you know times and all that? There is a very detailed system and program that's been built solely for team pinning and ranch sorting, that accumulates all these times, accumulates their average on so many head of cattle. And there's an individual that also is keeping track of that. There's somebody else that is in the office that is keeping track of the live feed and communicating with folks when they're commentating or commenting. And, there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of people trying to, attack, the whole process.
The other thing too, announcers have to do. By the way, 12 hours, ridiculous. I want to get back.
Oh man, it's a lot. It is a lot.
You owe it to the people competing to get the name right. And I don't know if they go off the team name, if you're calling it like the difference between a Tuiasa Sopo and a DG Batista. You've got to know that. And in baseball, you've got time to go down and go, who's the one new guy that's here today? You might have a team from a whole bunch of teams from a whole different area you've never heard before. Johnson, okay, great. You can call Johnson all day long. But a lot of words that you've got to have a mastery over, and in a moment, and then under an excited state of mind. And then back to the 12-hour things, you have to be prepared physically and mentally, of course, but also, if people don't understand this about hosting and announcing things, what you eat matters. When you eat matters. So like you have a French dip because that's all that's available, and you're like, you can't do that. So I imagine you don't eat that much, probably drink enough to keep you satisfied, but not enough to have to go to the back. Like you have to manage a lot more than just what happens on the microphone.
Oh, you're so right. And I'm laughing because there's so many aspects that, to be honest with you, I don't know if the team pinners even understand what you're dealing with, if they're announcing. But yeah, no, there's a lot going on in the sense of managing that exact thing. One, you can't eat because you're talking, and so when you do eat, it's literally on those short little cattle changes. And, so I might have a meal that'll sit there for an hour and a half before I'm even able to finish it. And then you're right. We do have some events where we'll have multiple announcers, and those are obviously nice to have. And those are the bigger ones, but there's a lot that you are that person for 12 hours and sometimes more than 12 hours. And for myself personally, and nothing against another announcer that would sit down, there's nothing wrong with obviously sitting down. But from my perspective, one, when I do sit down, I'm not as vocal. I don't feel like I'm boosting my voice like I should. And then just from a cognitive perspective, I think anybody, will just subconsciously maybe not get lazy, but you just kind of lull a little bit. And so I really take it personal, because during the day in the morning, right, usually is the very top riders. And so they're obviously getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so. They're the best of the best. However, if there's a team at the end of the day that is just getting started, they deserve to have just as much of excitement and get just as much energy out of me as the pros did in the beginning. And so I take that very seriously and have thankfully had a few people comment on that. But that is definitely an aspect. And then the name piece is a challenge in itself. You should see some of the names that will come across that, like you do the best you can with it. And like I said, a lot of times you don't have the ability to research it or confirm how to say it. And again, big thank you to our Italian friends or whatnot. Actually, I picked their names up fairly quickly, I felt like, but some of those had a lot of vowels in them. So, but some good names in general.
Well, just in general, we've got a lady coming up on the show in about a month or so, and she's an author, and her last name is Grima. Now, good luck. Good luck. It's not hard to say Grima. We don't know what it is until she says it. And there's just no way to know. And it's the simplest name in the world. My daughter's name is Brenna, Brenna.
Yeah,
people not say that name reliably. Yeah, they're like Rihanna. Someone once called her Brittany. So I mean, names are hard, and then you've got to yell them out over the world. And that's
and then it's you announce the team, and then it's on deck in the hole. So in one 30-second run, you're saying 9 different names.
Oh my God.
And so you're right. Like it is definitely, and then, you want to, it's your name, right? So you want to hear it correctly. You want to respect that. And so anybody out there that maybe I got your name wrong, I apologize, but you do the best you can with it. And there's a couple that, I still to this day struggle with, and they've even told me a couple times.
Yeah. It is not an easy thing to get names right because, again, like Steen, is it an E sound, I sound? Is there an accent? How about you could legitimately have someone who goes with the full, accented, American English doesn't really have all of the accents except for we do. We know what an Enya does, and the tilde thing, all these different things, right? So the one guy could be like, here comes Hernandez, and here comes Hernandez. There's a difference, and they want to be called the name. Like that's how they want to be called. And so you're trying to decide how to like say the same name. Oh my God, different ways. It's just crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like I said, too, you got to envision a sheet of paper, not only of the names that you're announcing, but all the teams coming up. And after 12 hours, all the names start to blend together on a paper. But it is fun. And the folks, like I said, they have some of these more challenging names. I think, have to deal with it a few times. But it's just it's funny as an announcer for sure.
Yeah, and it's all the little things that go into putting on this circus that you guys do. Who's got the hardest job on show day?
That's a really good question, because I think everybody, we're a team and we try to really, pull it all in. I mean, obviously being an announcer, I'm a little bit biased in all the different aspects that you have to take in, like I said, at a team penning specifically, because there's a lot of variables. But honestly, if I had to pick, it'd probably be the cattle crew. Physically, they are working. They are having to keep up with the cattle. Like I said, we move them so frequently so that they stay healthy and fresh. So the cattle crew is an invaluable aspect of what we do, and invaluable to the health and safety of the cattle. And so if I had to pick one, I'd say the cattle crew.
From doing a lot of amateur style racing, it's a circus of similar scale and size.
Yeah.
Big cars rolling all around. And if you are not constantly paying attention, which is impossible to do, there are more accidents in the paddock than there are on the racetrack, right? Because we all know what's going on the racetrack, and there's plenty of accidents on the racetrack. It's not smash 'em up derby, but there's enough variables that cars break and anything like that. But if you want to get hit by a car, go in the paddock and just don't pay attention for 2 seconds. And I got to imagine that once a weekend, you guys are pros, and someone's still going to get their foot stomped, or they're going to get squished between 2 cows or something. And they're going to be like, oh, they're going to get hurt someone gets some kind of hurt every single week. It has to be true.
Oh yeah, and you are spot on, because I'll give you a prime example. And this is bull riding, but it plays the same with inside the cattle crew and everything else. Just the other day, we're at a large bull riding event, PBR event in Denver at the Denver Coliseum. And close friend of mine, he owns the bulls, so he's loading his own bulls for the bull riding event. And, you think that the bull riders are in danger. Well, I'll tell you, this bull circled back, spun around, and they're so strong and so athletic that in a blink of an eye, they can launch a panel or a gate back into you. And my friend Josh, shout out to you, Josh, got this panel thrown back in him, and collapsed his lung and shattered multiple ribs, and not broke ribs, like literally into small pieces where they had to be set back in place. And this is coming from the owner who cares for those animals on a daily basis and loves those animals like they're his own kids. And that young kid of his that day, I guess, just didn't want that panel coming his direction, and threw it back at Josh so hard and so fast that it collapsed his lung and literally shattered his ribs. And he spent a few days in the hospital getting those ribs set back in place. And he's doing well now and on the mend. But it is very dangerous. And even in bull riding in general, as a bull rider, the most dangerous aspect of bull riding is when you're inside the buck and shoot. When you're preparing to nod your head and getting things ready before you're actually in the arena, you're surrounded by that steel and whatnot. So it's a great example, like the paddocks there in Indy. Very dangerous.
Well, it's just a numbers game, right? Like if you've got 60 or 70 events a year, that means you've got hundreds of trailers being attached to something. That means, I'm going to guarantee right now, someone loses a finger each year.
Yeah.
Someone's trailer tire goes out, comes uncoupled, and these are things that you never make mistakes on, except for you do it 1,000 times. And
it's a numbers game for sure. This, one of the sayings that they have, and again, I keep referencing bull riding, but that's just who I am as a person. Yeah. But there's a saying that says, it's not if you get hurt, it's when and how bad. And that plays true, because it's a numbers game. And if dealing with animals, no matter how greatly you care for them, they are strong, they're athletic, and at a moment's notice, it could, a car wreck could happen essentially. And it's absolutely true.
One more quick question about this thing. And I want to point out that we're talking about this just because, not that it's an overly dangerous thing, but when you have big things happening, You go to NASCAR weekend, someone's getting hit by a car that weekend. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to happen in the parking lot. There's just too many variables, right? Something's going to happen. So this is any kind of large scale event. So that's why they have medical crews on site, because weird things happen.
Yeah.
When your buddy takes that panel from the cow, his first instinct is to be like, I'm still going to get these bulls to that show, and then ultimately can't because he's got a collapsed lung and shattered ribs. But the next guy that does that, who needs to go to the hospital and goes to the arena, will not be the last guy or the first guy that ever do that. Has rodeo, how the Western sports, you guys are that probably hockey players, and you guys are probably the toughest people sport for sport that you have to be. I'm not saying you don't have to be tough to be Formula One or anything. Just the amount of things that you guys do that are dangerous. And then you still, because you're just programmed to be tough. Have you guys gotten better at getting each other to the hospital and saying, hey, you've got a concussion, or hey, I care about you. You'll come back next week if you're okay, but this week you got to go to the hospital?
Yeah. No. So to answer your question is yes, it has gotten better. In general, and this has been the way for a long time, but obviously you have to have an ambulance on site, at a bull riding event. You need to have two, or at least, the ability, you don't start again until the ambulance comes back if there's that unfortunate event. But also within saying that, there needs to be more. We need to make more progress when it comes to that exact thing. And it's hard because if you remember from our first conversation, one of the best aspects of bull riding again, or Western sports, but at the same time can be a challenge, is that it's a prize fight. These folks are going to these events. They're putting up their own money, their own entry fees, with no guarantee of any sort of money coming back. So if you're a 21, 25, whatever, any age bull rider, and your family is supported by your ability to make the 8-second whistle and win a bull riding event, and if you got knocked out in round one, unfortunately right now, I guarantee you most every bull rider is going to push to get on in round number 2 to continue that progression to win that money. And so there are some doctors in place that will, be able to make that decision for them and take them out of competition in a sense. But there's also that fine line, because that doctor also, needs to take in some of those other variables. And so it's a work in progress. And it's a good thing, because we've had some tragedy as of late with inside Western sports when it comes to whether CTE and suicide and that sort of thing, that we definitely need to address it. So work in progress.
If, like you said, if you're trying to get to the next round and your first name is Tough, you're not getting that guy off that horse.
Yeah.
Keep him off that bull. There's just no way to do it,
Yeah, no, and there is a culture. Obviously, there is a culture aspect to who we are as a demographic. Like I'll give you another example. And again, not to say that it's wrong or right, but it's a culture aspect. I was at a youth bull riding event this last weekend, and this young man, he was probably 13 years old, anywhere from 12 to 14. So a young man, unfortunately got hit in the head pretty hard and was knocked out cold. And, he distinctively made sure that he got to his feet. Now, he needed help, but, in himself as a person was not going to be carried out of the arena. And, and I grew up with it. And like, again, whether it's wrong or right, it's a culture thing. My dad was a bull rider. My dad was a professional bull rider for a long time and is a PRCA Gold Card member. And, if you're conscious and both your legs aren't broke, you should be able to get yourself out of the arena. And that's a very old school mentality, obviously, but there's still some of that resonates today. And you could see it in this young man on Saturday that, got to his feet and was assisted out of the arena, but he dang sure got to his feet.
Right. Yeah. If your leg ain't just kind of broke, because kind of broke, you still got to walk out,
or both of them. Both need to be broke. No, but again, that's a work in progress and whatnot. But
it is the nature of the sport, though, right? Like these are not combat sports, but these are physical, contact sports. And you're right. You have to have that mental aspect of I am the best in the world. I am not hurt. I am indestructible. Otherwise, you've got no business being in that arena.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000% correct, because that same mentality, and that's why I say it's a work in progress, or there's good and bad about it, is because that same mentality, that Superman, mentality, is also what allows them to ride the most athletic bulls in the world, to team pin at the highest level and to push yourself to that next round in a sense. That's what makes these people different. That's what makes winners different. Not everybody's built the same. And so it's a fine line between, good and bad or dumb and just courageous. That is absolutely a huge part of our sport and something that should be applauded, in that sense, in the sense of that aggression and competitiveness, like a Kobe Bryant, for example, is a reference that I use all the time. I absolutely, love Kobe Bryant's game or Tom Brady in this sense that, they are not going to lose at any given cost. They're going to put everything out on the line. And that mentality is what, definitely contributes to some of those decisions that these guys make and women.
And that there's a sorting process in that too. Like you 13, you get ejected off a Bronco and it launches you 10 feet and you get crumpled on the ground. The kid that wants to go on gets up. The other kid, totally fine. He's like, you know what? I've had enough of horse riding. When I was kind of between skiing and snowboarding, and I'm like, the crashes in snowboarding are just too devastating. I don't want that, And so I'm just keep skiing. Like there is a sorting process in that, and to get to the next level, to be Tom Brady, you have to say, I'm only going to eat the right thing for the next 24 years.
Yeah, it's a commitment that only a few can actually do, and so that's where you're seeing, again, like right now in the bull riding world, you're seeing one of the greatest athletes that has ever walked this planet is dominating the bull riding world, and Jose Vito Leme from Brazil. He eats, breathes, sleeps bull riding competition, and he is going to be extremely difficult to compete with for the next decade. Some of these other folks don't take that same mentality that he has and allow themselves to get to his level. But right now they're chasing.
I love it. Hey man, thanks for coming on the show. Anything?
Oh man. Thank you so much, Pete. I appreciate it. And it's always good to talk with you in general. And if you ever, make that trip out west again, just know here in Colorado, Wyoming, we'd love to see you and host you at a bull riding event or a team pinning or ranch sorting.
Yeah, hell, I'm west of you, man. I'm on the Pacific coast.
Yeah, that's true. I guess to the mountains. Yeah, if you come to the mountains.
Yeah, and I'll be checking out the event on Facebook this weekend. You guys should too. Just look on Facebook, the easiest place, USTPA. You type it in, you'll find it, and then you'll hear Cody's wonderful voice and watch. I'll be watching for sure. Everybody go check out and support these guys and give a think, maybe finding a new hobby if you think that the whole Wyoming Western lifestyle is for you. Try it out. All right, stand by, Cody.